Hey everyone, welcome to this week's special bonus show. It's going to be the recording of Gaslit Nation's first ever Make Art workshop, the business side of things, where I share the story of how, with no Hollywood connections, background, whatever, I got Mr. Jones out into the world. And the story is all here. What you're going to hear is the workshop portion. I recorded also the Q&A, which became a very lively chat where our audience of Gaslit Nation listeners shared their story, specific projects they're working on. That portion of the discussion is shared in the transcript only, where I protected people's names and privacy because I wanted us to have a freewheeling discussion where anything goes. People can put whatever they want on the table and all the issues, and we could work through them together. So for the folks in that discussion, your privacy is protected. To anybody reading the transcript, it's meant to be a guide for you in your own projects to jumpstart your work, to get inspiration, and to learn the ins and outs of how these art industries work and how to navigate them. And we need art. Art is survival. Art is survival. I just heard an extraordinary report on NPR's Here and Now about how Cuba, a dictatorship that's propped up by the Kremlin, there's a reason why Havana syndrome came out of Cuba. Havana syndrome being the electronic warfare weapon that all the credible reports are saying has been developed by the Kremlin for many decades since the start of the Cold War, and is being used on well over 1,000 men and women who serve our country, many in embassies, consulates, the CIA and FBI and so on the forefront of fighting Kremlin transnational crime. Anyway, so Cuba, the situation there is deteriorating. And this NPR report on Here and Now was interviewing some podcasters who are experts in Cuban music, who are saying how Cubans are increasingly turning to their culture to help them get through an extraordinarily difficult time where basic needs are increasingly being denied them by the Kremlin-backed dictatorship of Cuba. So art is survival. Art is evolution. Art is what we need right now more than ever. There's a reason why the dictatorships always go after the artists. We need the artists more than ever because they help us visualize and make real different alternatives, that another world is possible. That's why artists are so brilliant and fearless and essential to our civilization. And so all the artists out there, whether you have a dormant artist in you or whether you are aware of what is in you, we need it now. We need that creativity. We need that imagination. We need that defiance, and we need that hope. So without further ado, here is Gaslit Nation's Make Art workshop, the business side of things. And you can get the full conversation, the full workshop in the transcript that is available to our community of listeners who support the show at the truth teller level or higher. That's $5 a month or higher to support the show, support our wonderful production team that has been through so much over the years in making this during the growing threat of fascism at home and around the world. And if you want to sign up to listen to this full recording, go to patreon.com/gaslit. That's patreon.com/gaslit. And you can hear the full thing. Thank you to everyone who supports the show. We could not make Gaslit Nation without you. All right, everyone, welcome to the Gaslit Nation Make Art live workshop, the business side of things. I am so honored to be here with you all. I have given this workshop in my head many times now, and I don't know which version is going to come out tonight. So I'm as in suspense as you are. But I just want to share that any and all questions that you have, just drop them in the chat. There's so much to cover when it comes to this stuff. So we could also have offshoots of this discussion for future workshops. And of course, you can always message me over Patreon with any of your questions at all. And we can do hangouts like this where people can workshop their stuff. None of us should have to go through making art alone. It's a communal thing, as you'll hear in this big workshop. So I'm just going to go through an overview of how I went from a highly sensitive, socially awkward introvert with a big ambitious dream to make a film to a highly sensitive, socially awkward introvert with a film. So if I can do it, I promise you can, because who I am inside, I'm just a big fat cuddle bug. Like, I just want to be in bed. I want to just be surrounded by food and the people I love. Like, that for me is
life in heaven. And to go beyond that is a struggle sometimes. And I only was able to find my voice in the world out of desperation, obviously, for Ukraine and our own democracy here at home. And that's when all the fear just went away. And I just said what needed to be said, consequences be damned. And now here we all are. So I promise you, if I can find my way in all of this, you can too. You know, I'm somebody that gets easily offended when I see people being mean, when I see people being inconsiderate, and so on. Like, it just really gets to me and I stew over it. So how did I make it in this world of business and sharks and lawyers and all that? How did I find my voice in the business world? And that's extraordinarily important. We're going to start there. And if this all sounds self-helpy to you, well, what do you think it is? It's like, how do you get beyond all the stuff that's holding you back, all the self-doubt? And as you guys drop in questions in the chat, I will absolutely get to them. But I want to give you the larger overview of things, and then I can jump into questions that are dropped in the chat. We can go live back and forth. So first and foremost, what I focused on, what I understood when I was getting on my journey of getting Mr. Jones out in the world, was I focused on, okay, why am I doing this? What are my goals for doing this? Money and fame are certainly not goals. Those just aren't goals. You'll end up just self-destructing if those are your goals. My goals were to hang out with my grandfather, who I love very much. He was my first big loss in life. He died when I was 11. He was my world growing up. So working on this project, I got to hang out with his spirit. It felt really cool to be connected with him through Mr. Jones. The second thing was I was just shocked that Walter Duranty would do what he did by helping the Kremlin cover up a genocide. And that morbid fascination in this twisted mind drove me to try to just understand him. So Walter Duranty was the gateway drug into making this film and really educating the broader world, because I grew up during a very different time from today. Now everyone's a Ukraine expert, but when I was coming up in the world, most people just thought Ukrainians were Russians. They absolutely had never heard of the Holodomor, Stalin's genocide famine in Ukraine. So this film was a monument to that tragedy. And then the third thing, which really made a big difference, I think, in my journey, was I wanted to make this movie to create jobs for people. That was a very clear intention for me, because my day job at the time was corporate media. I was working at AOL Money and Finance as a personal finance editor, covering the economic collapse of 2008. And before that, I was at Condé Nast Portfolio, a big business magazine covering Wall Street and CEOs, the SEC, and so on. And so I was just watching just the carnage of capitalism and just so many talented people out of a job, waiting to be laid off myself. And I just knew that if I made this film, I would be making a company, and that company would create jobs and opportunities for people. And that's absolutely what it did. And on the very last night of filming in Edinburgh, Scotland, one of our production assistants said to me that his father wanted him to go into the business of being a coal miner in Poland. And because of my film, he got a job, and now he's going to be a filmmaker. And I'm proud to say that he's been working on other films ever since. And so it's extraordinarily important to start with this, because whatever your intention is at the start of your commitment to get your art out into the world, it's going to be there waiting for you at the end. You know, so you have to be so clear with yourself why you are doing this, and that why has to be larger than yourself. So if you look at my why was for the experience. I wanted to hang out with grandpa. I wanted to feel that energy again. So it was the experience. It was the day to day, right? That's very important, because that sustained me. I got to, get out of bed, put on my pants, and hang out with grandpa when I worked on my script. So having that thing that's going to sustain you day in and day out is so key. And then obviously, there was a sense of justice. So what is the sense of justice in your work? That's your engine. And then the third thing was, how are you going to bring other people along with you? Essential. So have a couple of intentions that sustain you, are your engine, and are bigger than you in a meaningful way, and focus on that, because you're going to need it. Because if you really are serious about getting your art out there, you're going to get a lot of rejection, as I did. You're going to get a lot of people misunderstanding you, as I did. You're going to get some people trying to steal your own idea, even when you come asking them for help, as I did. There are several cases of people I reached out to thinking they were allies. They're, Ukrainian American, for instance, and they just were sabotaging. And I don't hold it against them, because I was able to rise above it and everything's fine. But it was pretty shocking to see how several people over the years who should have been allies, who should have opened doors for me, instead created problems, put obstacles on my path. all those things will happen. People will let you down. People will not return emails. People will not get back to you. You'll be chasing after people. And there'll be many days where you might feel like you're going door to door selling vacuums. That's how I felt.